I gave a talk to a bunch of our center owners in Texas. And I said, if you want to be successful, one of the most important things you should do every single day is wake up before you do anything else and give yourself some tasks. How can I better myself today? And some things should come to mind and you should achieve those. How can I better my family? How can I better my community? How can I better my business? All right, you're tuned into Everything's Energy. My name is Michael Scaler, and today I have my host,
Roland
and
Marino.
So we are going to explore life paths. So you can play the game of life, or you can get stuck in the niches of society that are kind of designed to tie you down. And what I mean by that is you can be the NPC that learns one thing in life and has one task and become monotonous, or you can become a master of many things. And I find the polymath path is probably the most productive path in life. So you can master art, math, science, maybe flirting. I think that is a mastery, right?
For some people.
Yeah.
You're good at it, I guess.
I mean, well, and this is kind of where this topic comes from is my mom. I would play video games as a teenager and my mom was always grinding at me. She's like, you're wasting your gifts. And I was like, okay, I'm a kid. I'm just like, this is fun.
So let me beat this boss and I'll deal with your question.
Yeah, no, it's like, we can't talk boss fight. And so I realized I was wasting my gifts later in life. I spent a lot of time in my youth wasting my gifts, playing video games, as many of us did. I found a lot of useful tools in playing video games. Like I played World of Warcraft, which was literally the crack cocaine of video games. Many of us found it. They even created addiction protocols for people playing this video game because it was so addictive, where people were literally going to like an AA for this one video game. But I started a guild and I learned how to run this guild, and it was like 50 to 100 people at any given time during the peak of our guild, and I had to learn how to manage the people in the guild, the expectations, holding the hands of these children, so to speak, because it was mostly just, you know, a bunch of kids playing video games. But I found value in that. There were a lot of little things I found value in. But when I stopped playing video games, I shifted to learning how to trade cryptocurrency, or I would read. And it was funny because the crypto part came much later in life, where I was like, I'm intent on learning how to do technical analysis, learn how these charts move. And it really came down to pattern recognition and understanding the technicals of, you know, the head and shoulders and these different pennants and what that meant in the chart of the likely direction the currency was going to go, whether it was going to go up or down, sell, and I'd trade and go to mom. I'm like, oh yeah, I made all this money today. Or, you know, some days like, oh, I lost a lot today.
We don't talk about those days.
Yeah. But, you know, I traditionally actually did really well on average, especially, I mean, I lost a lot in the beginning because you're learning. And it was easier in the beginning too. So I kind of got lucky. But I remember being like, finally, you're playing a game that has meaning. And I was just like, oh, yeah, well, now that you mentioned this is kind of like a video game, I've been sitting at my computer addicted to playing this instead of playing, you know, Warcraft or something. But there's a lot of masteries that you can learn in life. And so instead of indulging, sitting in front of Netflix, literally staring at the wall, there's things you can do. So maybe do you guys have any experiences in life?
Yeah, and I would say some that kind of cross over to other benefits in your life. For me, is math.
Yeah.
I mean, I was the president of the math club, total
Hey.
nerd. But what I love about it, I mean, I watch a lot of these videos where people are like, when am I going to use this? It's like, yeah, you're memorizing things, but once you get past that and you're actually doing advanced mathematics, what ends up happening is you kind of learn the capacity to hold multiple parameters in your mind and then see multiple outcomes. So it develops your critical thinking part. So it's like, yeah, you're learning how to do math and solve this kind of problems, and you do have those problems in your life where you're doing some calculation and stuff. But more important than that is your critical thinking and holding multiple ideas in your mind and thinking which one is, you know, the right answer. But then also like in statistics and like viewing the world through that lens. And so math is one of those things that I think is highly applicable, but it also develops other parts of your brain that then brings value to other areas of your life, where you leave the consumer, which is just letting things in, to taking things in and then seeing it from a different perspective as well.
We have the neuroplasticity. So the more that you engage in something that really takes a large part of your brain, math would be like hyper focused typically, unless you're just a literal genius. So the neuroplasticity comes, and that progresses through life. The more you learn early in life too, that's why it's easier to learn languages when you're younger, is going to progress to a better outcome later in life. So, and not to say you guys can't learn something at an older age. It's super, super possible, but you're going to have to take some patience and dedication. And let's face it, as the older you get, the more impatient you get.
Or the less likely you are to be open to trying something new and being bad at it. Now, from what you guys both just said there, the thing that came into my mind was the idea of providing value to self, value to the world. Because if you're someone who just sits on a lump, or sits like a lump on a log on a couch watching Netflix, to your example, what are you doing for yourself? You're allowing yourself to be distracted. You're allowing yourself to become rationalized, lazy, and you're not bettering yourself. You're actually allowing the time that you have on this planet to slip away. But
Wasting your gifts.
There you go, wasting your gifts. But if you engage in trying to learn new things, it creates a momentum in your life to where you can have a multitude of things come out of it. One, you can have different versions or different iterations of yourself. You know, they said in the 50s, the average number of careers someone would have was like 1 point something. It's you basically master one career your entire life, you retire, then you just live out your life. I think the modern kid nowadays would have something up to like 7 or 8 different careers because there's so much opportunity now in life to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
But that only comes from deriving the understanding that to do that, you need to be of value to yourself. You will have to invest in yourself. And then you have to figure out how can these things that I'm learning better society? And then that gives you a feedback of also potentially creating a life of more success, of better relationships, and I think making the world a better place ultimately.
Yeah. And I think as human beings, we have a large need to serve others, right? To contribute to the world. And if you're just watching Netflix, you're not contributing and you're not meeting that need. So also developing skills in different areas allows you to help your friends and your family and others, which then kind of comes back to you and gives you this sense of purpose in life, which is really good for you. I've had a multitude of different careers. So in high school, I was in RTC for the Air Force. I thought I was going to be a fighter pilot. But that dream came crashing down when I learned that I wasn't.
Pun intended, crashing down.
So I couldn't do that and I had to make a shift. And the question I asked myself, well, what's something that I'm good at and that will always be around? And I was like, computers. And so I kind of went in that direction. But in order to pay for my university, I started working at a wedding reception venue. I started off as a waiter and I worked my way up to general manager and maitre d'. And then I ended up needing a second job. So then I became a security guard. So then I was doing that. Once I graduated and I became an engineer, after a couple of years became unfulfilled in that. And then I kind of changed trajectories and I got into cybersecurity. And I love that because there was a lot to learn. Every single day I was learning about a new tool or something like that. So I've had multiple careers and kind of like jumping from different things. And I always remember one thing that one of my professors told me, which was everything is everything else. Everything is, once you understand like kind of the foundation, everything is just a combination of everything else. And you can learn anything if you just bring it down back to the basics, right? And develop yourself.
Well, and you bring up a good point there too, because there's a lot of people, the MPC crowd, that would stop at food and beverage. You know, I've had friends that are, you know, especially in the party scene. I have conversations with some of my friends who've advanced significantly since the 20s and 30s to run companies and things like that. And they're like, yeah, I went back to our old scene and the guys are still there doing the same thing. And, you know, they're still a bartender and, you know, like a decade later. And that's fine. Some people find, I can't bash people. Some people find comfort in just having simplicity. I personally have way too much aptitude to stay stuck doing one thing. I've traversed multiple industries in my lifetime, and I'm always learning new things because it's just part of it's necessary because I run a company, so I have to learn new things all the time because otherwise I just have to hire a bunch of new people, and a lot of times those people will take advantage because, oh, well, he doesn't know anything about, say, Instagram, so I'm just going to charge him $50,000 and do stuff that literally costs me 5 minutes a day. I see that with other companies. I'm like, you paid them how much? Like, what are you? Huh? Yeah. It's just because they just don't know better. There's an interesting factor here too, as well, with what you were saying about providing value to yourself, but also I gave a talk to a bunch of our center owners in Texas. And I said, if you want to be successful, one of the most important things you should do every single day is wake up before you do anything else. and give yourself some tasks. How can I better myself today? And some things should come to mind, and you should achieve those. How can I better my family? How can I better my community? How can I better my business? And when you encompass these multiple spheres of your reality, instead of saying, well, how do I make more money today? It's if you project a community aspect, you'll be more successful because you're tying in your community. If I just sit down and say, I want $100 million today, it's not going to happen. But if you got to your community and say, I'm trying to figure out this project that makes $100 million, people get excited, a community builds, a project builds. Instead of being the top of the pyramid, you're literally like, all right, we'll build the base, because no one gets to the top of a pyramid without actually building this pyramid. And I'm not talking about like a pyramid scheme, but it's just how things flow. Everyone wants to be a millionaire. Everyone wants to be famous. No one wants to do the work.
Yeah.
And so to be successful, you have to build the foundation, which is learning lots of skills and not being an NPC. There's not a single NPC. Well, there are a couple NPCs like Cash Me Outside Girl, but she actually did something with it later. But it's like she got famous from jumping on and saying the most ridiculous things on the internet. There are those. And please, for the love of God, people, stop making stupid people famous. You were about to say something.
Yeah. A huge paradigm shift that I had in my life was the shift from working in my life to working on my life, which is kind of like that high level of what's the trajectory of my life? How can I learn something new that adds value for my family, for my friends, for the future of my children, and kind of all of those different things, which kind of falls in line with that. The change in that mindset kind of just gave birth to everything else, because you can kind of look at your life and then plan it accordingly, and then find out what are all the things that you kind of have to do to help develop yourself in that way.
Well, I'm hearing what both of you guys are saying is there's a lot of things that I think we can boil down to the concept of either complacency or motivation, right?
Yeah, you're either lazy or you're motivated.
Or you're not, right?
Yeah,
And obviously the three of us at this table, why we're having this conversation is not only does this strike a chord of resonance, but all of us in our own way are trying to build these things out. My question is, where do you guys think, because I have my answer to this, where do you think the NPC mentality stems from in the average person? Because I would say there's more of them than there are not.
I think it's a societal issue. I think in school they teach everyone they have to operate in this box, and you're a one-task person because the corporations are designed to hire one-task people. It's like you get a job and you serve drinks.
It's like leftover remnants from the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, TPS reports. Like you're one
Did
task.
you get the TPS report?
It'd be great if you could just get me those.
Don't let me jump to conclusions if anyone gets that reference.
That's literally why I left corporate America. It was because it was like, this is your lane and your scope, and stick to it. There were circumstances that I was in where I could branch out and do different things, and they were like, no, like do this.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, stay in your lane. And it was so ridiculous. So it was like no creativity, and to me, it was killing me inside.
Yeah, this is why we're having this conversation. It should stem to maybe inspire someone who is on the verge of being an NPC or is an NPC from halting that vicious loop. We need more heroes and leaders in this world and less followers. And unfortunately, it seems like there is a really, really, really poor ratio. And I kind of think it's by societal design. They just want good little worker bees that are out there. They'll go do their one task and make corporate America wealthy. They'll pay their taxes. Don't think outside the box. That's bad. I think that's really where it stemmed from, in my opinion.
Did you have a theory for?
Well, I did have something, because what you said is basically people who lose their zest for life fall into the trap of being essentially overseen, and they play their role. They're a cog in a wheel and nothing more. And their rationality is, I'm an important piece of this puzzle, and maybe they are, maybe they're not, but it may keep them there. I think people, one, don't know what a leader is. You say we need more leaders. Most people think a leader is someone who's bossy, telling other people what to do.
I hate that part.
That's the opposite of a leader. That's closer to a dictator.
Yeah.
My definition of a leader is someone who teaches someone else to become a leader, right? You guide through action. You let someone make decisions for themselves. You empower them with personal responsibility. And maybe you're there to help them if they make some mistakes or they get off the rails, so to speak. I think that's the first thing. People don't know how to be a leader. They don't want to take responsibility. The second thing is people lose their inner childlike wonder of the world. The thing that I struck a chord with me, that you were saying, I didn't want to be this corporate box or be in this corporate box. I've always said, if someone tries to put me in a box, you're going to see a Roland-shaped hole in the wall because I'm going to blow myself
Like a
out of there.
cartoon.
Exactly, just like this. People start to not believe things are possible. Like your life really is dictated by what your beliefs come together to do to construct reality. So, it's a cliche, but Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. People, like when you're a child, you can pretend that you're whatever character you want to be in a day. And you're convinced that you are a pirate, then the next minute you're a dinosaur and you're whatever you want to be. We get conditioned in life, and agreeing to your point, we stop believing things are possible for us because we start believing in the feedback of what's probable. And those are the people that eventually just lose all of their zest for life. They don't want to learn new things. They get stuck in a rut, and their stuckness is because they've lost the magic of existence.
Yeah. So
and that's huge.
Let me segue from there because I already had the question, but you laid it up so well. So how do people then transition out of that? And how are people inspired and motivated to want to get more out of life and be leaders?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Do you want me to start, Michael? And you want to? Okay. I have a few things. Let's say someone wants to transition into their dream job. They're in an office space and they want to be an entrepreneur. They want to do something that's brand new. First and foremost, you have to prove to yourself that it is possible for you to step out your comfort zone. So maybe you start with some small things of getting outside things that you've conditioned yourself to live within, and you have these small wins along the way. That's the first thing. You have to believe that you can do something more than you're currently doing. The second thing is you have to really have a clear vision and a way forwards in something. So there's an old adage, fake it till you make it. You don't want to fake your entire life, but for you to be able to be somewhere, it has to be a thought in your mind before it can ever become reality. Like a microphone was an idea in someone's mind before it became a thing in this physical reality. So you have to practice your own mastery of manifestation of what it is you want to do. And at some point, you ever jumped off like a cliff into water before?
Well, not a cliff, but
Some
waterfall.
Yeah. But you ever seen people who get to the edge and they're just like, ugh. I recently climbed a mountain last time I was here, I went to Colorado on my way home and I climbed the Flatirons, and my friend's like, oh, we're going to go bouldering. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm pretty athletic. I can do this. What he didn't tell me was we're going like hundreds of feet up with no rope.
Yeah.
So there was one moment where I had to jump from a rock to another rock, and behind me was down. And if I was going down, like there would be no rolling on future podcasts. And I just stopped thinking about all the things that could go wrong at one point, and I just jumped and trusted myself.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important part of this whole thing. If you don't trust yourself, don't branch out.
Yeah.
If you don't trust yourself, don't go for it, because it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah. When I was in college, I was going into the final of this electrical engineering class. I don't remember what it was, but I ended up in that class because I was supposed to take like a server class, but it was like filled up and they couldn't add me because it was like 15 servers and that was it. And it was so hard, all those controls. And I struggled through that class. And I remember walking into the final and one of my friends goes, hey man, like, what are you going to do? Like if you fail? Because if I would have failed that final, I would have failed the class and I wouldn't have graduated. And I already had my job with GM. So I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, like if you fail this like final, I was like, I literally couldn't understand what he was talking about.
Why are you asking me
and then
such a stupid question?
And then I was like, oh, you mean? I was like, dude, I don't need this kind of negativity. But it hadn't even occurred. I didn't look down the path of if I would have failed, like what's my plan? I just knew. I was like, no, I'm going to pass. And that was my belief. And that's how I move through it. But so many people like don't have that. Right?
Well, I found that the deep NPCs, they don't want to see other NPCs succeed because it proves them wrong, because it's stuck in that so hard that they like, no one else can do that. No, you can't do that. Because I used to throw events, and the amount of shade I got from the NPCs was crazy. And one day said something really wise. It's like, these guys all want to see you fail. They're cheering to see you fail because they can't do this. They don't have the aptitude to do what you're doing. And I was just like, oh my God, that's so true. Because I would put in dedication, like hard work. Like I was a one-man army. Like you couldn't replace me with 10 people. I was like, I have a vision. I'm getting it done. Unfortunately, a lot of people, they have too much work-life balance. At the end of the day, I was just like, one way or another, I'm still this same way today. It's like, it doesn't matter how beat up I feel, how much I want to go on a date, how much I want to go to the beach. If there's work that needs to be done, it's getting done one way or another.
Yeah.
You said something that's super profound that might be worthwhile to bring up for a second. For someone to be successful, someone has to be not successful in some capacity in life, right? There's some sort of balance. But it's so easy for people to wish failure upon someone else when they see someone going after something that seems like a lofty endeavor. Those people oftentimes never move from the position of stuckness they're in because it's the energy and the mentality that they choose to keep themselves in. There's an old saying that, negative thoughts multiply like rabbits doing you-know-what in the summer. Positive thoughts are not automated. They're things that you have to work on. And I like that you brought up the example of never thinking about failure, because there is a certain blissful ignorance of just not entertaining the negative side of an outcome. Because the minute you have that in, it's like the idea of hurting yourself on that jump. The minute you start thinking about that, guess what's possible? That you can hurt yourself because you've actually willed it into existence potentially. But if you see someone who's successful doing better than you, maybe they're making more money, they have more prestige, more clout, whatever.
Should inspire you.
I'm happy for them because the idea of me wanting to be anyone else is the biggest disservice I can ever do to myself in life. And when you do something like that, you're happy for other people's success. You champion the things that they've done. Even if you're in a rut, that energy comes into your life in an unconscious way, and it will be something that will be a catalyst of positive change if you're patient enough for the process. And to your point, you're willing to do the work.
Yeah, but it's interesting because you have literally these tendrils of people. If you hang out with the wrong people, and they will literally be, well, you can't do that. They'll naysay you. They want you to stay on their level because they're lonely.
And it might be unconscious. I had a friend, we were out at a bar, and then afterwards he wanted to go get tacos, and he's like, oh, I know this one place, isn't that? And this girl looks it up, and she's like, oh, it's closed. And he looks at her, he's like, I don't need this kind of negativity. And we ended up finding a taco spot, right? But it's just you say something like that, and it should, and for the majority, especially when you're younger and you have this dream, this idea, and someone shuts you down, you accept it, right? It's a suggestion, and then that's like the end of that, and you don't go beyond. One of the tactics that they have in NLP that I really like is you ask someone a question and they say, I don't know. You say, well, if you did know, what do you think it would be, right? Because once you say, I don't know, you stop thinking in that direction. And I think it's the same with like what you think is possible in your beliefs.
Yeah, I think there's a place too when some of your friends are having ideas and they are outlandish. There is like maybe that's one perspective. Maybe, you kind of coach them. But when they have a great idea, it's literally like, all right, let's Google how to do this. Let's like group think this. Let's figure it out. Because not everyone has the best idea. I've heard some ideas. I'm like, that they're like, oh, this is such a great. I'm like, no. Then other times it's like, that's effing brilliant. Like, let's make this happen.
Even if you don't have a path forward, it's like if there's something that you want and maybe you can afford it, instead of just saying it's like, oh, like I can't afford that. It's like, how could I afford that?
Yeah.
Or even I've had some friends that I was like, oh, like I'm not gonna be able to afford it. I'm like, okay, how much is it? And they're like, I don't know. I just know it's a lot. It's like
1 million.
It's like, you don't know. Why don't you find out the number and then see how it's possible for you?
Have you guys heard the saying words are spells?
They are.
They are.
Words have power.
We don't realize how often we cast negative spells upon ourselves by just immediately responding, oh, I could never ... Like, I don't think I've ever said I can't afford that in my life. Not because I can afford anything. It's just, well, maybe I just haven't caught up to the moment where I have the opportunity to actually buy it. It doesn't mean that it's not a possibility. And I think that's an important cognitive bias that people have to face if they want to transcend the barriers that have been set for them. It's, what do you tell yourself?
Well, it's an
What do you
interesting
convince
concept.
yourself of?
It's an interesting concept. So you have these younger guys that buy these expensive cars they really can't afford. But what happens once they buy this expensive car and they want to make those payments? It doesn't always happen. I have no idea what the ratio is, but you see a lot of them, a good portion of them, literally figure out a hustle because they really wanted that car and they want to keep that car.
Yep.
So it's like they literally created this scenario in their life where they're like, if you don't hustle, you're losing that car.
And there's something to that. You say yes to something that you have no idea how it's going to work out, and you just trust yourself and you figure it out. I wouldn't say it's the least stressful way of doing it, but if you wish to accomplish something and you align thought, feeling, emotion, and intention, I think anyone's capable of, within reason, almost anything.
Yeah, I mean, life's a gamble, so you may lose or fail. I've had a lot of losses in my life, and I just count them to learning experiences.
But don't you learn more from failure than you do success in life?
My mom used to call it high tuition learning experience because I'm a high school dropout, but I have a knowledge base that's so massive because I've failed so many times. I'm like, I know exactly how to not do that. I think it's extremely powerful, and people are afraid to fail. But you talk to every successful millionaire, billionaire, they're going to be like, oh, I was poor many times and I failed many times. It took me, 10 iterations before I actually got somewhere. And, this is the difference between instant gratification and hard work. If you can dedicate yourself to something and give it your 100%, or in some cases, it's going to take 200%, I'm not going to lie, you'll get there. There's no doubt. But if you are going to be like, well, I didn't, it's been 2 months and I didn't get, it's like going to the gym. It's like, I want to get fit and have a six pack. If you go every day and you mind your macros and your anabolic windows and you do all the things, you're going to get fit. It doesn't matter what condition you have. It doesn't matter if you're depressed. If you say, I am going to achieve this every day and you put the effort in, you'll get there. But a lot of people, they just don't, they give up too early. They're like, well, I've been doing this a month and I don't have six pack abs. It's like, well, you should try another few months.
Yeah. So then how did someone get to that? Because whenever, we all know how to get fit and people struggle with it. And it's not that they don't know the strategy, right? It's like the commitment and having the discipline. I was at Burning Man this year and I set up the LEDs for Play Alchemist, and Ian had complimented me and he asked me because he wanted to kind of figure out, he's like, I'm so grateful that you came and did this because you're autonomous. You took ownership of this and you saw it all the way through. And there are other people in the camp that they don't do that. So he's like, is it your constitution? He kind of wanted to figure out how he can coach people and mentor them to give them that. And till this day, I don't know how to teach grit.
It's valid. I don't have a quick answer for that one either.
I can pick something apart that Michael said. Every successful person I've ever met has done things their way, meaning they've honored the process uniquely to their way of doing it. And through that, usually you encounter a lot of adversity, obstacles, challenges, failures, if you want to use that term, but we'll call them repurposed successes. I think some of it comes from just being on the ropes of life, getting punched a few times, but starting to see the pattern of how things, and you're like, oh, now that my reality has opened up to have a more expansive ability to take in the knowledge and understanding of how things go, what could be grit is actually someone just learning how to be more efficient with how they navigate through life. The other aspect is, well, if it has to get done, it just simply has to get done. If you have that mentality, you can pass the buck of responsibility. You can create excuses. At the end of the day, if you know that it's on you, it's kind of simple. You have to take care of that. And the third thing is, I think, being in the presence of other role models, or learning from or getting to work alongside people who transfer these things to you wordlessly through their actions, not necessarily telling you what to do, how to do it, because I think that really incapacitates people. Yeah. It's like teaching someone to fish versus just tossing them a sardine.
That was a huge one for me. So I worked at the wedding reception venue, and then I shipped it over to, I was doing security, and then I started working at the Hyatt doing weddings there. And I learned a ton that when I went back to the wedding reception venue, I was able to apply. And one of those things was having this trifold that had kind of all the details of the wedding and all the stations and everything. And that was really valuable because before, what we used to do is when the staff would show up, they would just come straight to me, like, what do we have to do? And I would tell them, and then they would go do it, and then they would come back. So it was very inefficient. So this allowed for people to come in, grab the piece of paper, and then go do the thing that they needed to do. And a lot of them, it was just the station. And so there were a lot of unanswered questions. So when the staff would come up to me and they would ask me, he was like, well, what plates should we use? These or these? I'd be like, I don't know. What do you think? Right. And letting them decide and figure it out, and kind of letting them fail a little bit, where they would bring the plates up, and then I would be like, what would happen if, and they'd be like, oh yeah, we can't do this. And I was like, well, now you got to bring everything down. But giving them that, it allowed them to take ownership of it and inspired them to then go above and beyond. So that's one thing that I've learned in terms of getting people to be autonomous, is kind of not thinking for them and letting them think, which is what I guess parents do too, right?
Good parents.
Good parents, yeah.
Teaching confidence is definitely a good thing. I don't know if that's really something a lot of parents teach typically, especially in this day and age. But yeah, but to your point, being successful comes down to a few things: time management, confidence as well, and a strategy. So when I was throwing those events and I was just crushing it, I would spend a lot of time considering load in and load out, and then everything else in the middle fell together, because those are your two biggest crunch times, is load in and load out. So coming up with strategies and then having people you can rely on, that's absolutely difficult. And I've run multiple businesses. People you can rely on are probably the most important thing ever, and having autonomy and having confidence. And some of that comes down to having that tribe. That scope of work is like, this is your job. This is what you need to achieve. And after a short period of time, you should be able to teach them to do that. And I love this Tony Robbins quote. It's not about who you hire. It's about who you didn't fire.
Yeah.
Because you can have people in your team, and I've seen so many business owners who are just afraid of firing someone because they don't want to deal with the negativity and for some reason they have a mental block on it. Having toxic people in your work environment is destructive. You have one rotten apple in a giant 100 bin of fresh good apples. It will literally destroy all the apples if you don't remove it.
Yeah.
So you have to be very concise with who's on your team, what's their role, are they doing their job? Because if this it's like a tripod. If one of the legs of the tripod gets kicked out, the other two are trying to hold it up, but it's just typically not going to happen. So I would give a call to action for people out there that want to be entrepreneurs or are running businesses. Be very, very concise with what people's roles are. Be very concise with when they need to leave. And they don't always need to leave. Sometimes they just need some very heavy coaching. But don't let other people run over you in any stage of life, because they're just going to take. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are parasitic by nature. We call them energy vampires in a lot of circles. It's like they'll take. It's like, what are you offering? And they're like, well, I'm here. It's like, actually, you being here is sucking the life out of them.
Yeah. There's a lot of research that shows that it demoralizes everyone else. You're rather off having people do more work than having that person there, because everyone is like, oh, we're working really hard. And then when the bonus comes out and everyone gets it, that's when they get upset. And then the opposite is also true. You working in proximity to someone who is a hard worker and highly efficient also increases your productivity as well.
Well, it's an energy thing, right? Like birds of a feather flock together. I don't think people appreciate the unconscious influence things have in their lives. And if we circle back to the beginning, you talked about someone just sitting around watching Netflix. What's the energy of binge watching CSI Miami actually doing to your mind and your brain and your motivation?
Well,
it's dark stuff.
Yeah.
And you're just indulging yourself in either things that suppress you and keep you in a certain state, or you're watching things that are the object of your desires or your affections. You're getting a little bit of a feedback of watching someone's glamorous life, but you're not lifting a finger to do it because that's enough, because you don't think that's possible, but I'm still getting a little bit of this. So it's this weird kind of.
Well, hold on, because we don't want people to not watch our podcast. Please continue watching the screen.
I did not say that. We're not on Netflix
yet. I mean, it's extreme. There's people that fall into an addiction. So there's indulgence, and then there's addiction. So there's people that will spend 6-8 hours a day watching television or just being mindless, playing video games. At least video games, you have neuroplasticity, movement. Your mind is working, but there's people that just sit there, eat potato chips, and watch TV. This is a terrible addiction. But also, if you're watching this podcast, we're kind of catering this to be inspirational and maybe give you an aha moment or an epiphany of some sort. So it's actually increasing the possibility of you learning something. But at the end of the day, I watched Netflix last night, so don't shoot me.
What did you watch? What did you watch though?
I watched Halo.
There you go.
I think we need some kind of like outlet to. Sometimes, I mean, you work all the time and so hard, so like having something where you're like, okay, can I turn my brain off just for a little bit and relax? That's fine. I think it goes back to the addiction of just like this habit of just consuming stuff in and out. I always, for the most part, there needs to be some kind of objective to what I'm watching to learn something. But sometimes our objective is just to laugh, right? And just to kind of release.
Well, I mean, you do need a little bit of gluttony in your life, some relax, because I am a workaholic. I wake up in the morning and I work till late. And so I'll typically watch Netflix for about an hour or two before going to bed because I'm still hyped up from between coffee and lots of work. But I typically can't actually just watch Netflix either. I'm typically doing something on my phone.
Multitasking.
It typically always, yeah.
But, and we have to address the fact that there is a potential, I don't want to use the word dark side, but there's an imbalanced nature to being a high achiever to where if you can't shut off, that's a problem in and of itself in a different way. You've not become privy to being preyed upon by society and being suppressed, but without the constant stimuli of being on the go, working on something new, building something new, that's also imbalance in a different way. But one has to have a good sense of themselves to be able to be honest and to look internally and going, am I too much this way or am I too much that way?
Yeah, I mean,
because there is like the 10x lifestyle, and I don't think that's the path to ultimate expression of existence either.
No. Well, I was going to say, all about the effects that has on the nervous system, right? And like,
most people are walking around with a pretty lit up fight or flight branch of the nervous system, and last time I checked, it always leads to burnout.
yeah.
I don't know what that is.
As I have my third coffee of the afternoon.
3 years into burnout. Is it still burnout? I joke to someone like,
there's nothing left to burn.
Between all the things going on in my life right now, I'm like, I feel like that meme with the dog where the fire's around. And I've just become so numb to everything being kind of chaotic. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, yeah. Oh man, I am that dog. This year particularly, it's like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Become just normalized. It's probably not the healthiest thing, but sometimes you have to go through that fire to become reborn.
Yeah, perspective is everything, right?
Yeah, I'm phoenixing it.
Flap the wings and rise. But there is no such thing as a challenge or a problem in life that doesn't come along with a gift or an opportunity to learn and level up.
I said that today on a call. I'm like, while it's been a hectic year, I've learned so much this year. I mean, so much.
It's interesting. The years you maybe achieve the least in terms of external success, like more money, more this, more that, the balance has to be the internal years of growth are then going to flip on themselves and then repurpose that new growth to a new ability, a new outcome, a new endeavor. So it really is a feedback system that has to be managed. Diamonds
are created under
pressure.
Extreme heat, pressure, and time.
Yes.
Yeah. And in the moment, you may not see it, right? It's happening. And you're like, this sucks. But you let time pass by, and then you start to kind of see all of the things that tie into that and the skills that you developed or the change in the course that it had for you. And then that's when it's like you have that aha moment.
You need that merino grit. Okay, so I have a question for you guys. What was your big aha moment in life that allowed you to catalyze this current way of looking at your existence? Not being someone who fell into, following the lemmings off of the hill, you decided to take responsibility for yourselves. What was that moment for each of you?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, the first one, I was 16 and I did mushies. And
you too at that age.
Yeah. And it was one of the most profound moments of my life. And I feel like, and it's a rite of passage in a lot of different cultures of doing psychedelics. And what I realized, I was on it and I saw mandalas spinning on the roof. And it was very vivid. And then I went outside and I brought beams of light down from the stars and I was moving them with my hands and my mind. Obviously this is a hallucination, so there weren't actual beams of light. But I remember waking up the next day as a 16-year-old with this profound moment of thought. I don't know anything. And for a 16-year-old who's a know-it-all, every 16-year-old is, to say, I don't know anything, opened up the doorways to me being able to know everything. And it's funny, around that time, my mom hung this picture on my wall, and it's one of the best things ever. Go not where there is a path. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail.
I think for me, probably the experience of meeting people that were much older than me and just seeing how sad their life turned out and all of the stories of coulda, woulda, shoulda, and just thinking to myself, that will not be me. And so that kind of like inspires me and gets me to kind of push through because I don't want to live a life full of regret. I'd rather endure the pain of the work than get to old age and be full of regret because there's nothing you could do about that. Your life is past. So it's kind of that future projection and thinking about all the things that I could do with my life.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, let's wrap the show with yours.
It's interesting because I had, and we're not now promoting psychedelic experiences, but I had a very profound psychedelic experience where I did an ayahuasca journey, and I was able to jump through these different screens and seeing how my interacting with someone affected them, and then they affected me, and they opened up these paths forward, and I kept jumping through all these different realities. And it showed me the effect of what you can do if you just believe in what it is you're on in terms of a mission in life. And that was a very profound thing for me that happened. It wasn't quite at the same age as you, so it wasn't so impactful, but I think it broke me out of being stuck in a rut. Because the second half of it was I had that experience that you did, seeing other people who are either self-limiting or the situations and circumstances of their lives kept them stuck in a place that they couldn't see their way out of. And at a young age, I simply decided that's not going to be me, but I didn't know how to get there. And that experience kind of shattered all these perceived limitations. And at that moment, when I woke up the next day, I decided I'm just doing what I want to do in my life. And there's no question about how it's just going to happen. And I'm still on that journey.
I love shattering limitations. I'll shatter all the limitations.
Shat all over yourself.
Oh, God. Or on that note, thank you everyone for tuning in on the Everything's Energy show. Like, comment, all that good stuff. I'd actually, this is a great conversation. Hopefully people watching it want to chime in the comments. We'll join you there. We'll try and react with you. So drop a comment on some of your whatever comes to mind while you've been watching this, and let's go from there. Have a beautiful one. Until now.